Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Marilyn Hawes with Unprecedented TV for my show Heart and Soul, and you'll find us on YouTube. I'm also CEO of Freedom from Abuse. That's a charity seeking to prevent child abuse and any abuse existing in society today, of which there is far too much. For Heart and Soul, I am inviting anyone with a lived experience or a story to tell as a guest on my show. So if you have a situation you would like to discuss and be given some airtime, please do contact Unprecedented TV and be a guest with me. Together, we will discuss the issues of which all too often people want to turn away from, choosing to ignore others' reality, and the situation, frankly, needs to be given oxygen, kick that elephant out the room, and opening up hearts, minds, and soul. So today, I am welcoming the wonderful Peter Garsden, Child Abuse Lawyer of the Year, the Universe. Let's have a drum roll for Peter.
Oh dear, that was a bit hard to listen to. Anyway, I'm sure that if the word drums here, I'll be playing them, but there aren't any, I'm afraid.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Peter.
Oh, there they go.
We go back a long way, don't we? We go back 2 decades, I would say. And your lovely wife was on last week, so no pressure. So I want to get to, let's be the heart and soul that is behind the eyes of a lawyer. So I know you live in the Northwest. Were you born there?
Yes, I was. My father and mother had a television rental retail shop in Lee, which is very much part of the Northwest. They had aspirations that I shouldn't remain in Lee all my life and sent me away to boarding school when I was 8.
Where did you go?
Well, we started off at a place in Hoylake called the Lees, and that was a prep school. Was there from 8 to 13, and then I went to Repton Public School near Derby from 13 to 18. And I have to say that although my first at school was quite pleasant and I did okay there, my second public school was not good, and I was bullied quite badly for 2 years. Between about the ages of 14 and 16. And when I look back now, that experience, boarding school per se, not only that, is probably responsible for a lot of my campaigns and the way my approach representing David rather than Goliath, and the poor and oppressed rather than the rich and famous. And it's not only that. My father was came from a working class background, and he always favoured. He was quite left wing, I guess, by derivation, by birth, and I think I inherited a lot of his, feelings on the subject. My mother was always seeking justice in every respect. So yeah, that's quite a long answer to a short question. But yes, I am from the Northwest, and
it's because you don't have a strong North accent, you see. That's why I wanted to ask. But I think it's also, where you live is absolutely glorious. We'll talk about that later. But I'm sorry you were bullied at school. I was bullied at school as well, and I had that from the age of 5 to 8 years old, and that was at a pre-prep. And I will never, I can still remember her name, Hilary Webster. And I'm sure you can remember the people that did this to you.
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
It wasn't physical bullying, it was emotional bullying. I was sent to Coventry. I've always been a very confident person, and they thought I was too big for my own boots and needed cutting down a little. So they sent me to Coventry and didn't speak to me. And I think that, emotional abuse is almost worse than physical abuse, because physical abuse is, you can do something about that. You can fight back if you like, and it's got a short thing. But emotional abuse it's a bit like gaslighting in a marriage, I guess. It's cruel, and yeah, I've often wondered whether I ought to do something about that, because obviously now I'm an abuse lawyer, and I could, but those angry memories, those emotional feelings of being distanced and shunned stay with me, and I also realise that in my professional life, particularly in meeting setting, you know, when I'm holding, I used to hold a lot of meetings when I had my own firm, and if somebody was a bit angst or difficult or argumentative, I would overreact to that, and that's why. But it's contributed to me being, you know, perhaps a bit of a pugnacious litigator in law, and you know, not being prepared to back down when the other side's being difficult, and perhaps maybe overreacting a bit when that happens. You know, I say that, you know, as a 68-year-old looking back. I know I don't look at. I know before you say.
I was not going to mention it. I thought, goodness, my word! Do you use Grecian 2000 or something? Yeah, grey hair there.
I don't. It's coal dust and Vaseline. That's what I use. Yeah.
But it is that emotional. I agree. I mean, Hillary used to push me over, and I had terrible injuries. And my sister used to sort her out. But the emotional is what let me all my life feel that I was a lesser person, that I wasn't good enough, that it always impacted my self-esteem. And I never told my mother, and it does impact. I am really against any form of bullying, and I can't bear it. It's so cruel. So I mean, cruel.
It was good for me when I was running my own firm. You know, we had a very good culture there, a very inclusive and caring culture. And I would always stamp down very hard on any sort of competitive nastiness, because unfortunately, it's not uncommon in law firms. Yeah. You know, people climbing the greasy pole to get to the top of the ladder. That's mixed metaphors. But if it ever happened in my firm, I'd say to people, look, if you don't like the culture here, which is caring, if you think more about yourself than somebody else, and go and work for somebody else, because that's not what we have here, and that's why people want to work here. So, you know, I think, you know, if you like, there's a positive side, but the statistics there are 1 in 4, aren't they? You know, 1 in 4 of us.
Sorry, you carry on.
1 in 4 of us are meant to be victims of abuse, aren't they? That was the statistic. Yes. But if you include us, then we are part of that statistic. And, you know, you wouldn't think it, but it's true.
It is true. And I come down hard on the kids whenever I do the training in school. I mean, no one has the right to bully. No one. That person you're bullying, you could push them over the edge because you're chipping away at them. And of course, now you've got the online bullying. It makes it worse.
I think that's much worse, yeah.
You know, and it's someone's son, daughter, friend, cousin, neighbor, brother, sister. It's brutal. I cannot bear it. And I cannot bear it. So what would you say then, Peter, that experience, I mean, did that experience make you go into law, or did you want to do law? Because I'm interested to know how you went into law and then got into child abuse. Was that at the start, or did it evolve?
No, it was completely by accident. I mean, I decided to be a lawyer because my father came home somewhat tired, saying that in retail, and you know, the customer's always right, and you have to agree with things you don't want to agree to. And I thought, well, what job can I do where I don't have to suffer that, and I'm more in control? And it was either going to be a teacher or a lawyer. I mean, I used to be a teacher, and I think that was a naive view, because obviously the customer still is always right, and you know, have to say things that perhaps you can't reveal your true feelings, and you have to care for them and look after them. But that's why I went into it. In terms of when child abuse came along, that was a complete accident. I mean, I always liked representing individuals rather than corporations, and I did a variety of all sorts of different types of law. But eventually, an old criminal client of mine, who it turns out was one of the first in the Northwest to be interviewed about abuse in a children's home in Warrington called Greystone Heath, told me that the police had suggested he take some legal advice, but they wouldn't tell him why. And obviously I immediately knew why. That one case turned into 100 cases because there were 100 claimants at Greystone Heath, and that home turned into another home because those children that had been abused also went to different other homes and were abused as they went to the different homes. You know, I believe there's some sort of linkage as to why paedophiles target in the book. There was an argument there was some sort of message on social care records. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. And that one case, that children's home turned into 5 large children's homes. And you know, at one time in about 1998, 99, 41 out of 43 police forces had a children's home investigation of abuse on their patch. They were learning from scratch. I was learning from scratch. There was no law. The psychologists didn't really understand what sort of trauma victims of abuse suffer from. It was hugely exciting, but hugely stressful process. Because lawyers always looked for precedent, and there wasn't any.
It's also like, it's a bit like peeling back an onion, isn't it? You get layer upon layer upon layer, and the bigger it grows, I mean, the more almost frightening it is. I mean, you scratch the surface and underneath it is a whole cesspit of worms. But I think you mentioned about paedophiles. I mean, I have gone into prisons and spoken to them, and a lot of them, I would say about 65%, admitted to choosing careers when they were 16, studying different subjects that would make them either doctors, social workers,
really?
home people, social workers, all sorts of things that would put them in the front line. Because I mean, if you are going to be a paedophile and that's where your bag is, you're not going to work in a people's home, are you? It's obvious. It goes with the territory. I will be a teacher. I will be a social worker. Where there are those vulnerable children, there you will find them. I mean, that is. I mean, so I think that's extreme. I didn't realise that that's how you come across. Now, you and I met you, and when I found you, lucky man, I was looking to do conferences, as you know, and I was thinking, well, I need a child abuse lawyer, and I found this organisation called ACL, Association of Child Abuse Lawyers. Could you give us some insight to that?
Oh yeah, very interesting. Yes. Well, I told you about the tortures of wrestling without precedent and sort of faffing around in the dark in the early days. We heard quite a few horror stories. When I say we, that was me and a lady called Lee Moore, who was a non-practicing barrister who had been the victim of satanic abuse and had given up the law and decided to devote herself to the subject matter. She was telling me horror stories about victims of abuse that had not been treated in the right way by their solicitor and been dismissed and, you know, not treated in the right client care way. And she wanted to set up an association so that victims of abuse would be spoken to empathetically, would be listened to, wouldn't be constantly interrupted and dismissed like a sausage in a sausage machine. So we decided to set up an association of lawyers who would be devoted to seeking justice, looking after clients, pushing the frontiers of the law. And, you know, the code of conduct is still there on the website, and we now have 80 members. There was a handful of us who were doing this type of case. I mean, there aren't enough child abuse lawyers, frankly, and inquirers struggle to find somebody who's prepared to do this type of work, because frankly, you know, there are easier ways of making money as a lawyer. And child abuse cases are some of the most difficult legally and technically. it's a very, very complex area. It encompasses, crime, family, care law, personal injury, commercial law, you name it. It's very broad tapestry. So, and a lot of lawyers who you speak to just don't want to do this type of work. It's, a lot of people say to me, I don't know how you do it. It's because it's, the cases we deal with are the worst cases that social services have to deal with.
Yes.
They're, our bar for acceptable cases is probably serious sexual abuse, whereas below that there's a whole rafter of, emotional abuse and physical abuse that legally we find difficult to process. I won't go into the technicalities of it, but when I gave evidence to the independent inquiry, the statistic was that lawyers in this field turn away 6 out of 10 cases, and that's appalling. They are 6 deserving cases that ought to be able to get justice, and they can't. And
also there was a problem with legal aid, wasn't there, that you could get legal aid if you were the perpetrator but not if you were the victim. Is that right? Is that still the case?
Don't think so. I mean, I don't know what you're referring to. I think what you're referring to is domestic violence.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Where you can only get legal aid if you're the victim of abuse, and often the victim of abuse is against a perpetrator in the same court, and that's psychologically damaging. And there's all sorts of legal aid, and that's another big subject. Oh, yes. Legal aid is meant to be one of the 4 pillars of the welfare system, and the welfare system, and it isn't. It's withered on the vine, as has justice, and it's in a terrible state. I know we're moving on to other things, but it's scandalous.
Yes, it is.
How badly served victims of abuse of all types are served by the welfare state.
Yes, it's dreadful. There's no funding. It's absolutely awful. People skim over it, and it's absolutely dreadful. But I'm making a little bit lighter of this. I mean, you won awards, didn't you? Didn't you? You win an award for setting up ACLE.
Well, I've won a few awards.
Very prestigious.
There's me, about 2 stone heavier. There we are. And Lisa Nandy and Mrs. McGuinness, Christine McGuinness, at the Pride of Manchester Awards, which was perhaps my most recent award. That was pushed very hard by Lisa Nandy, actually. I was very grateful to her, and she was lovely on the night. Christine McGuinness is there because she's suffers from autism, which indeed do I. And it was a really, really great night. It was, the awards that you enter are partially marketing, but this was one that was somebody put me forward for, and I don't know why. And we had, it was a red carpet do with lots of celebrities in Manchester. So that was a very happy occasion. Yes,
it was much deserved, Peter. You absolutely deserved it. Honestly, I was so pleased when I saw you'd got that. Of all the other awards you've got, Child Abuse Lawyer of the Year, etc. So deserved. You are one of the most empathic, authentic, calm, kind lawyer I've met. You're not remotely arrogant. You don't show any malice. I mean, you're not like me when I called Hugh Edwards a grubby little toad. You are much nicer than I am when you're in a court, I'm sure.
Well, in all fairness, Marilyn, and thank you very much for those kind words. I don't sit very comfortably with that sort of thing.
No, that's because you're humble.
Well, I don't know about that, but
you are.
Maybe, well, I mean, I genuinely believe, and this isn't false modesty, there are a huge number of very capable, very good lawyers who don't win awards. And frankly, because of the subject matter that I deal with, per se it's meritorious. So I have an advantage over other, similarly good lawyers because of what I do. I mean, okay, I do a bit outside of the law, and I campaign for changes, and I that's time that I'm not earning money, obviously, and that's because I believe in the subject matter, and maybe that's meritorious. I don't know, but I definitely had some imposter syndrome on that night. Because I mean, frankly, if you look at the people that win Pride of Britain awards, there was one guy that was getting rid of landmines in all different parts of the world, and saving people's lives. And I thought, well, that's a proper award. That's deserved. And I've just been a lawyer and fighting for the. I've done a bit of fostering and. Well, yeah, actually, I did deserve it, didn't I?
You did deserve it. 30 children fostered. You absolutely deserved it. And the thing is, you see, I know a lot of lawyers who strut around and they've got this awful egotistic attitude, and you have no ego. You're so easy to work with. And so when I've got people coming to me, you know full well the number of times I signpost them to you. But the first time we met, I'm sure you'll remember this, I thought, it was Simpson Miller then, wasn't it, you were with? And they sponsored, I think you sponsored 3 conferences, I think. And I thought, well, I've got to have this Peter Garsden I've never met. I've got to have him speak. And when you walked, I thought, there you arrived. And I thought, goodness, he's a good laugh. I've never known a lawyer wear 2 to 3 inch bright red braces.
Yeah.
And I thought he's got to be great fun because the comedic and your whole dry sense of humour when you were delivering your thing with it. Yes, I don't know where you got the trousers from.
Yeah, that was. I need to tell you about that photograph. That was a day at the office. I mean, Simpson Miller. I sold my firm to Simpson Miller, but that was when I had my own firm called Abney Garsden MacDonald in Cheadle-Hulme, and that was Comic Relief Day, and it was decided that we should try and raise some money by walking backwards through Cheadle-Hulme wearing Wellingtons full of jelly, red jelly, obviously, because it was Comic Relief Day, and that we ought to wear fancy dress, and that was my outfit.
I wish there was a video on it. It's not on you. It's not on TikTok, is it?
Well, it probably will be now.
I mean, my producer would love to have shown that. I tell you, that'd have been slipped in there if she could have done it.
Yeah.
You are great fun. You really are great fun. So, I mean, honestly, out of any of the cases that you've done, would the one you mentioned earlier be the one that you remember the most of those children's homes? Is there one that sits in your mind?
Well, I mean, you've got to remember that was a group action. That I was acting for individuals in that group action, and I was also the coordinating solicitor. So it was a bit like herding a crowd of cats, as in lawyers. And a lot of them, most of them didn't know what they were doing. They'd never dealt with these cases before. So that was sort of a managerial exercise. And sorry, to answer your question, there are cases. There's a case that stands out in my mind, and this really upset me. This case, and I can't explain why. I've dealt with cases that were far worse than this one, but this guy was a victim of abuse in children's homes, and he was coloured and had been bullied and was from very poor upbringing, and he was badly abused in a children's home in Manchester, and he came forward very late in time, and he said to me, I've not come forward, he said, because I know there are a lot of lads in this group action. We did a large group action against various children's homes in the north, within Manchester. In fact, I think the police were investigating 66 children's homes in Manchester at one time, back in the day. And he said, I've not come forward, he said, because I know some of the lads that were abused in this children's home, and they've received compensation, and it's ended up their arm. They've spent it on drugs, and they've died. And he said, this is the kiss of death for me. And he wasn't very well. He'd committed lots of criminal offences, and largely because of the abuse in childhood, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah.
And he wasn't very well medically, and he said, because I'm not going to, if I get any money, I don't want any of this money. I'm going to give it to my children, because I've been such an awful father that I don't deserve this money. I'm going to give it to my kids, because I've neglected them because I've been so bad, and that's what I want to do. Anyway, unfortunately, before the case settled, he died. Oh. He'd had a drug overdose, I think.
Oh no.
And died. And I went to his funeral. I could feel myself getting upset now.
Yeah.
I was so taken by that case, and that's not the worst case I've ever dealt with.
No.
It's one of the only occasions when, because it upset me, I talked about it immediately afterwards. And professionally, secondary trauma for us as lawyers, it is an issue. But I made sure that as soon as it upset me, I talked about it.
Yes.
And I offloaded it. So, we are human beings, and things.
Exactly. I have to do the same. I don't get paid for half of what I do, as you know, but people see me a lot on media, and they're desperate for someone to help them. And I don't charge for that. I just think if someone comes to me altruistically, I feel I have to help them if I can, or signpost them. There's 2 or 3 people I've helped over the years, and they're still in contact with me, and I've watched those people grow, and just by talking to me when they could talk to me, I've watched them emerge and evolve and begin to heal, and I hate the word recovery. The NHS use it all the time. Something like this, where you have been so broken, you can heal, but you still have the scars. So with my own children, as you know, I had a breakdown, I had PTSD. I'm not that person now. I can't believe I actually wanted to take my life, but that's what happens. 75% of youngsters who are in young offenders institutes suffered early year child abuse of one point or another. That's outrageous, and they go to court, and we stick them in a care home. We don't work with them where we could actually stick those broken parts together again and, rebuild the brain and the neural pathways. So 85% of mental health in this country is due to the impact of child abuse, not it. So you have saved, Peter, you have saved people's lives. You have saved people's lives. And you have given them back hope. That's the thing about my show. I want to always end on hope. We haven't finished yet, so don't think I'm winding it up, because I'm not. But it's really important that we never take someone's hope away. And you've done that. I've seen you do it. I follow you. I stalk you.
But some of the cases, those group actions I was talking about, some of them lasted 13 years.
Yes.
That was the longest one. That was, down to the defendants taking point after point after point in the hope that eventually they'd wear down the claimants and they'd give up. Well, they didn't give up. But all of them got justice. But that 13-year process is a 13-year relationship with us. And that is a healing process.
Yes.
The cynical would say, oh, well, they're only in it for money. Well, they're not. And then they don't believe that they deserve money.
No, that's
they
right.
Don't believe that. All they want is justice.
Yes.
And ironically, that's what the legal system can't give them, because all that happens is we push cases to a certain point and push until the other side eventually decide that we're not going to go away, and they make a settlement offer. But a settlement and compensation is not what the the claimant wants. The claimant wants to go to court,
Yes.
stand up before a judge, embarrass the local authority or whoever it was, or the abuser, and feel believed.
That's so important. I agree with you, Peter. That's the one thing. When people disclose over the phone to me, they start off crying, and I go, I'm not saying anything. You take a deep breath. When you're ready, just start. Start at the start, and we do, and it goes on, and you're in for the next 2 hours. And all the time they're saying, do you believe me? Do you believe me? And that's because that drip, 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 drip message from the abuser says, nobody will believe you. Nobody will believe you. You'll be shunned. You'll be put in a care home. You'll be thrown out of the school. The lies that the groomer tells that person is horrific.
I don't quite understand where the concept that children in care or poor people were bad and shouldn't be believed came from.
I know.
I'd love to know why, but if you look back through care records from the 60s, as I have many times, you'll find that when the child was wetting the bed, the doctors or the psychiatrists thought that they were feral and that there was something wrong with them. They were almost like beasts, and that it couldn't, it never entered the head that actually they could have been buggered by a care worker or sexual abused. I mean,
exactly. And those impacts are, it is the behaviors, I always say that brokenness. I mean, the phobias, addictions, anxiety, depression. And if you don't, I would say this to anyone that ever watches this going forward, is that the earlier you can download and disclose, the healthier you will be later on in life. Because, if you hold that in, it does cause diabetes, blood pressure, heart disease, what's the other thing, thyroid problems, kidney problems, all sorts of things, cancer even, from that held in trauma. And it's just this point before we carry on with you, anybody watching this, I would urge you to read or actually get the audio of Amazon, The Body Keeps the Score. And it is a brilliant book by Bessel van der Kolk, and it's so good. But the print is too small. You need to get it audio on Amazon. It's helped so many people. It helps you understand the necessity to disclose. And if your friends don't want to believe you, then, they weren't going to be your friends, are they? Nobody should judge. I think I was always frightened of, I still am now, I don't like being judged. I know it has the right to judge anyone, and my parents, my mum was very judgmental. But moving on a bit, in recent years, you mentioned it earlier in the conversation, you were diagnosed with a neurodiverse condition, weren't you? How did that come about? I mean, you don't. That's if you want to talk about it. If you don't mind.
Yes, of course. No. Yeah, my life is an open book. I'm not.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. No. I think my wife and I had certain communication difficulties, shall we say. She'd probably describe it differently from that. And she had a friend who was a specialist in autism. And from what my wife described, she thought that I may have autism or I may be autistic. So we were in, marital crisis. So I agreed to be diagnosed, and before I had the diagnosis, autism is not uncommon in my clients. I had noticed an increase in the number that had been diagnosed. So I did a test online, and I found out of 10 factors, I only thought I had 8. But of course, I'm not me looking at me; it's other people looking at me that's important. So I went along, fortunately I had a cancellation, and I went along to this place in Chester, I think. And, that she asked me a number of questions and said, how would you feel if I have no doubt that you are autistic? How would you react to that? And I went, I'd be absolutely gobsmacked. I didn't think that, I'm just me. I don't look at me and think, oh, that's an autistic person. I'm just me. And people have often said I've got a bizarre sense of humor. And to be honest, I was quite offended, because I thought that meant that if I was autistic, I didn't care. But, they explained to me that that's not the case at all. But in actual fact, with that sort of diagnosis, I couldn't be doing a more appropriate job. Because the thing about autism is that you think in boxes. So I'm probably more able to put the bad stuff that I listen to in a box and lock it away than other people, where it will intrude into their consciousness and affect them.
Yeah. Also, I think I'm right in saying, I mean, with your work, I mean, the devil is in the detail, isn't it? You know, you can't afford to skim read and make an assumption. And being autistic, I mean, I've taught autistic children and Asperger's, as it was called then, on the spectrum, and you're very precise, aren't you? You know everything, and that is the perfect job for you, that you are precise. Everything is. Yeah. Whereas me, I would just skim read stuff. I would be a hopeless lawyer, because I just I would find all that reading boring anyway. But I mean, I think you know. But you see, I think, I mean, you're right up there, Peter, with Alan Turing, aren't you?
Well, that was the thing I was going to say.
I mean, he was autistic.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and Isaac Newton and various other famous inventors. And the reason, the reason that, I mean, I'm nowhere near that, but they had this obsession with whatever it is
at the time.
Sometimes the detriment of all else, and that's where what my wife would say, that, you know, I become obsessed with whatever I'm dealing with, and I have the ability to hyper focus. I mean, I know, you know, they talk about selective hearing.
Oh, I think that's
but that selective hearing is where you do hear it, but you pretend that you don't. I'd be watching the television and my wife would talk to me, I wouldn't hear her, because I was so obsessively concentrating on, and she didn't believe me. She thought I was ignoring it. Oh, you're ignoring me again. I said, I'm not, I didn't hear you. What did you say? Because you have this concentration ability to focus.
Yeah.
And that's how I am. And you know, I found the diagnosis quite difficult. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, I can have some insight, because I mean, you weren't a child when your mother took you off. You know, you're an adult, a married man, and you think, oh, I've been coping all right all this time. So what is this that they're telling me? You know, I feel quite upset by that, to be honest, because we all think we're coping very, very well. I mean, what I want to do is two more things I want to ask you, and I'm going to leave one to the very end, but which I really do want to end with it, but I want to know, like, you have this amazing hobby, don't you? Because I was going to say, how do you sleep at night? But you have an amazing hobby, which is extraordinary, and I think I'm going to have to bring a friend of mine up to see it, actually. Do tell us what you do. Look at him, look at that bad boy.
Oh, that's a petrol glider. Wow. I fly radio control model airplanes as a hobby. How big is
that? What's the wingspan?
That's 3.75 meters.
Wow.
So it's so big that the wings won't fit in the photograph, obviously. I mean, that's not the biggest glider, you know.
Build something like that. How long does that take?
Oh, 6 months probably.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it's all the fuselage is roll ply, so you've got to steam the ply around curves. Wings are all balsa made up, and you've got that gull wing effect, so that's quite difficult to build. So it was quite a challenge to build that, but it flies absolutely beautifully. And fortunately, I live in the heart of the Peak District, and there's lots of hills nearby where we can fly model aeroplanes, and it's very helpful. Yeah.
Does Michael O'Leary know that you're, you know, the competitor for Ryanair?
Watch out, Michael. That's what I say. Yeah, we'll be.
You know, you can strap people wings.
We'll
it's extraordinary. Your workshop must be huge.
Well, it's just over there. I know you can't see it, but I live in a bungalow with a garage, and 2/3 of it is modelling workshop, you know, and 1/3 of it is my study. So it's a form of distraction, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Because when you're flying a glider, you can't think of anything else.
Yes.
And you're out in the fresh air and beautiful countryside on top of hills, with the wind blowing in your face. And frankly, there's nothing better.
Yeah. I mean, the air up there is so pure. I used to do a lot of work up in Blackburn and around that area, and Preston and around there. I mean, the air is just so clean, isn't it? You wouldn't think it is. It's stunning. We have such a beautiful country. When you look around, the countryside is absolutely magnificent. Well, I'm going to certainly come up there and have a look at those things, those bad boys. I have to say, how many have you got?
35, 36 of them.
I tell you, Ryanair needs to be worried.
It does. Yeah, mind you, if you look in the cockpit, you probably just see Reg. Reg is the pilot, but unfortunately, he's made out of plastic, and he's
not Biggles. You haven't got Biggles in there, then?
Well, he's probably got autism. Actually, that's probably what it is.
Now, there's two things we're going to go back to work. Current things that are in the news, right? You can decide. I'm not going to put words into your mouth, but I would like to start with Jess Phillips yesterday.
Oh, right. What did she do yesterday? Sorry, I missed that.
Oh, you didn't know?
No.
Oh, right. So we're now going to have courses for boys on misogyny that they are not doing.
Oh, yes, I did know.
I'm incandescent with rage, Peter. Because what about the boys being abused? And I was thinking, as a lawyer, child abuse, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. You say.
Well, in terms of boys having misogyny lessons, that's quite an irony, really, because when I was brought up in the 70s, boys were, macho is the wrong word. They didn't show the feelings, and they didn't talk about the feelings, just got on with it. Whereas now in 2025, boys are a bit lost. They've lost their way, and they talk about the feelings all the time. I have a personal trainer. I mean, you won't believe it to look at me, but I do. And he talks about his feelings all the time. Spends the whole hour talking about his feelings, and I think, goodness, and he's a big guy. He's not effeminate in any way. He's very, as what we would say, macho from the 70s, but he has his skin care in the morning, and he cares about his hair, and ironically, we've gone from not disclosing your feelings in the 70s and internalizing everything and suffering mentally, but it never being dealt with, often to the grave, to the 2025s, when we have boys who are talking about the feelings maybe more than girls, some of whom are victims, I hate to say, of domestic abuse by women, girls. I mean, it's a forgotten statistic, I have to say, where they are talking about their feelings and they don't know what their role is. So they're latching on to these, social media commentators who are encouraging them to be misogynists.
But the thing is, though, Peter, this is a word I don't think the government understand. We probably haven't even heard of it, actually. Is misandry. Misandry. We have misandrous. We have the female equivalent. There's a word for it, so we know it exists. I know it exists. I have had, when I go into schools and I do this course on toxic relationships, I have more boys come forward and talk to me about their girlfriends than the girls. And you will know this from your experience as a lawyer. Women and girls can be absolutely vile. I mean, so many men who have spoken to me have said, I'm terrified of going to court because the women play that awful game of, well, of course, he's trying to abuse my children. And they get believed. And my godson, a lawyer himself, when he was like 20, I suppose, I can't remember, he was quite young, but he got married. And his wife used to literally push his head through mirrors. He had shards of glass. You'd never have thought it. I mean, there he was. He was a lawyer. and he was terrified of coming forward or saying anything. And, you know, and I said, but you've got to take her to court. You have to. But he was worried about, you know, they're narcissistic. All abusers are narcissistic. No empathy. But women can really mix it, I think, whereas you might get but what annoys me about this thing with the boys, I'm sorry, I'm on one now because I really am. I do believe probably more girls are abused, and I think that is probably right. But even if it is right, all abuse is awful, and it isn't about gender. And I think, as you rightly say, boys are lost, and this just demonizes them, demasculates them, and destroys them. I mean, if they're doing any courses, they should actually do a course on how to be a man. What is it to be masculine?
Yeah. Yes.
And they don't teach respect. Consent sits on respect, doesn't it? And that's all the schools want to talk about is consent.
Yeah, I mean, there was some research done by a psychologist on, I think it was on Women's Hour. Ironically, that there is a thing called Women's Hour. There should be sort of People's Hour, really, shouldn't there? And there is, you know, a minister for violence against women, and as though it's a sort of you know monosyllabic type of thing, and it's not. What she was saying in this research was that she looked at 21 to 25-year-olds and boys, and they're very lost. Yes. They don't know what their role is in life. And I mean, it was nice to have a bit of balance on Women's Hour, but it really is women's lib gone to extremes.
Oh, it's on steroids.
Because I know you interviewed my wife last week, but you know, the start it was probably when they stopped broadcasting Miss World and Miss Britain on the television, and there was women libbers, you know, revolting. They probably were being revolting, but and they stopped that happening, and that was probably the start of the gentle decline in men's rights, if you like. I mean, that's a bit controversial, but the stone has turned and gone too far, I think.
It's absolutely 100%. I mean, I like, you laugh about your personal trainer, but I do like a man to smell nice, I have to say.
Oh, so do I. Yes.
I do think it's lovely. Aftershave is just so lovely, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's really nice. But you still want, you know, I don't understand these women livers. I mean, I like a man to hold the door for me, to open the car door, to put, you know, to help me on with my coat. I like that masculine sort of almost caring. You know what I mean?
Well, that's that you've put your finger on it. That's where they've gone astray, young men. That's where they've gone astray. They haven't got that, because there's a conflict in society, isn't there? Yeah. On the one hand, men are deemed to be leaders and earners and providers, hunter-gatherers, but on the other hand, they're not. You know, image-wise, they're not. They should be in touch with their feelings. They should be quite soft and not macho. So there's a conflict going on there. And
but I think I just, women are women. We have children. We are nurturing, right? And all this, like, everybody's got to be equal. I believe in equality as in human beings, but you know, men are different and they are wired differently, as are women. But it shouldn't be. You have the battle of the sexes. Why should there be a battle? If you're actually in tune together, so you're feminine, you're masculine, I like you looking after me gently and kindly, not controlling, then there should be enormous harmony and joy in that, I feel, intimacy. Yes. And, you know, and real pleasure. And right,
we're dinosaurs, you know that, don't you?
Sorry?
We are dinosaurs, Marilyn.
Oh, I know we're dinosaurs, but I don't care. I still wave my flag that I like men to treat me like a lady. I like that, and I don't want to go around. I mean, my daughter-in-law's a bit like this, you know. I can do this. I can let him do it. You know, why have you? No, I can do this. I'm as strong as his. Oh, for goodness sake, what is wrong with you? I don't get it. I just don't get it. But the other thing I want to ask about also, before my producer says time's up, is. The other thing about liability Lammy, you know, calamity Lammy, wanting to get rid of juries. To me, how can you do that without a huge debate?
This is part of a much wider subject. I mean, trial by jury is one thing. It goes back to the Doomsday Book. It's been in existence in English law for 800 years. It's deemed to be the fairest way of trying guilt. It avoids the bias of the few and the judgment of maybe those in authority over those without rights, if you like, if you look at it conceptually. And for that reason, it should remain because it's the best. You know, in English law. Love that, yeah. Very good image. English law around the world is known as the fairest and the best, and to tinker with it and take away jury trial for financial reasons is a big mistake. And thankfully, there's a big, the backbench cohort are revolting. And they're telling Lammy that he's got it wrong, and indeed he has got it wrong. He's obviously following one of the recommendations of Brian Levison, who is a learned man, and what he was recommending was taking away the right to trial to try and save time. But it won't. It's tinkering the edges. It won't work. It won't solve the problem. That's the thing.
I don't see how it's going to save time. I don't understand how. I don't understand his reasoning. But what I don't understand is how one numpty can stand up there and say this. I mean, this is a massive thing to overturn. I mean, where are all the judges? Where's the justice people? I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, I really, as a lawyer, you must feel very angry. I mean, will you be campaigning about that?
Well, I mean, I've got a lot of things to campaign about. I mean, I would campaign about it if there was a group that needed campaign. It's more for the criminal lawyers that because it's the criminal lawyers that feel it at the sharp end. I mean, frankly, this all starts. It starts in 1947 when there were 4 pillars of the welfare state, including justice. Justice has dropped off the edge of one of the 4 pillars of the welfare state, largely because a Conservative government, not Labour, in about 2012 demolished legal aid. It was Kenneth Clarke, Home Secretary, who announced that the poor were shouting too loudly about their rights and causing mayhem, particularly challenging local authority decisions and governmental decisions by way of judicial review. And that was scandalous and wrong. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. The poor have to be kept where they should be. I mean, I don't mean this, I'm being cynical. And that will take away all the legal aid elements that previously were part of the legal aid system, because legal aid was costing far too much money. And at the sweep of a pen, he took away housing, prison law, various, a lot of family law. So I mean, you've come across this, and people not having the rights. You talk to the judges, because there's no legal aid and no lawyers, and people can't afford to pay lawyers. Judges have to deal with litigants in person, and it's awful. That takes much longer dealing with a litigant in person than it would be with a lawyer, because he does all preparation, and it runs more efficient, more smoothly. So it's a big mistake that, because believe it or not, legal aid rates have not gone up since 1996.
Good Lord.
Now, I mean, I know the junior doctors have been on strike 14 times, and I'm sure they're entitled to what they're asking for. But goodness me, if they hadn't had a pay rise since 1996, they really would have something to complain about. And because Chris Grayling, after Kenneth Clarke, demolished the system even further, dreadful man. And because the pay for very competent criminal barristers in the CPS and defending clients, I mean, their pay was worse, the defence, than CPS, which is obviously wrong. Barristers left criminal law in their droves. So cases come on for trial, they're going to have they're risking a serious prison sentence.
Yeah.
There's no lawyer. There's no lawyer for the prosecution and no lawyer for the defence. So the system has been badly funded since 2012. It's collapsing.
Yeah, it is.
To abolish.
I am going to have to close us down now, and it's been. I've talked to you for ages. I found it absolutely fascinating, and thank you so much for your time. Okay. And your, your knowledge and the way you deliver it, and and actually, I see you as a personal friend anyway. So it's very easy just having a cozy chat. So thank you so much, and have fun flying your planes at the weekend.
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you
so much for your time. I really do appreciate it, and there is a little bit of sort of a depression about the state of play at the moment, but your job, believe me, gives people hope, and that's what matters. And I thank you for that, and all you're doing for the people that I've funnel up to you. And it's great to know that we have all these child abuse lawyers. Not enough, but nonetheless, it's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, and have a great weekend and a happy Christmas.
And a happy Christmas to you.
Goodness me, this time next week it'll be Christmas Day. Woo! Well, that was the lovely Peter Garsden, child abuse lawyer, and this is Marilyn Hawes from Heart and Soul, and obviously representing Unprecedented TV. Please tune in, please subscribe, and our next guest, if you're going to be listening to this one anyway, our next guest will be Rachel Fairhurst, who is a very, very expert trauma therapist, and we will be talking about early year trauma, which will help parents identify if their children are in trauma. It's easy to spot in behaviours. So thank you. And the next time I think I'm on, it will have had Christmas Day. So happy Christmas to everybody. And thank you for listening.